Have you ever looked at someone and wondered how they always seem one step ahead? How they win arguments without raising their voice, walk into a room and instantly take control, or make people follow their lead without trying too hard? That isn't luck. That isn't charm. That is strategy. It's intelligence, sharpened like a blade, aimed with purpose, and executed with quiet confidence. You've seen it, you've felt it, and deep inside, you've wanted it. The ability to outthink, outmaneuver, and outplay anyone in your way. But most people never get there, because they don't understand where true power begins. It's not about being louder. It's not about being aggressive. It's about outsmarting, and outsmarting begins in the mind, long before any words are spoken or moves are made. Right now, you're at a crossroads. You can keep reacting to life, hoping things fall into place, or you can start learning how to bend situations to your will, not through manipulation, through mastery. Because when you know how to read people, control your energy, and use silence, strategy, and observation as tools, you stop playing checkers while the rest of the world stumbles through chess. You become dangerous without ever needing to raise your voice. You become untouchable without ever having to prove yourself. The truth is, we're all being tested every day, at work, in relationships, in decisions, and most people fail, not because they're not smart, but because they don't know the rules of mental dominance. They haven't trained their minds to think several steps ahead. They get emotional, they get distracted, they give away their power without even knowing it. But not you, not anymore, because in this moment you've decided to wake up, to see that intelligence isn't just about knowledge, it's about control. And when you learn the rules of dominance, you don't just protect yourself from being used, manipulated, or underestimated. You rise, you win, you lead, and you do it quietly, relentlessly, and effectively. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming the version of you that already exists, the one you've buried under doubt, hesitation, and fear of judgment. But that part of you, the calculated, calm, and powerful part, it's still there. And we're going to bring it back. So stay with me. Because by the time we're done, you'll understand exactly how power works. You'll see how to spot the weaknesses in others, and more importantly, how to eliminate them in yourself. You'll learn how to walk into any room and know where the leverage is. You'll stop over-explaining, stop chasing approval, and start thinking with clarity, purpose, and precision. This isn't hype, this is your edge. And once you learn how to use it, there is no going back. If you're ready to become the strategist, not the follower, if you're ready to play the game to win, then keep watching. Your transformation starts now. Most people are stuck in a game they don't even know they're playing. They walk into rooms hoping to be accepted, waiting for permission to speak, shrinking themselves to fit the expectations of others. They hand over control without realizing it, by letting someone else define the tone, the rules, the frame. And when things don't go their way, they blame luck, timing, or the people around them. But what if you knew that the way people respond to you isn't random? What if you realized that every interaction, every outcome, every win or loss is shaped by something invisible, something powerful, the frame? The frame is the unseen battlefield, where dominance is decided before the first word is spoken, and whoever controls it controls everything. The frame is perception. It's not about what is true. It's about what is believed to be true. It's the lens through which others see you, and more importantly, through which they accept how to treat you. If you walk into a conversation with uncertainty, you've already surrendered. If you present your ideas as if they need approval, you've already lost the power. The person who sets the frame sets the value, and the one who sets the value leads. That's how influence is built, not through noise, but through control of the unseen narrative. To outsmart anyone, you must first master how people perceive reality. And the truth is, perception is fragile. Most people are desperate for someone to tell them how to think, how to feel, how to respond. So they look for the person with the strongest frame, the one who doesn't flinch, who doesn't chase, who isn't desperate for validation. And when they find them, they follow. Not because they were forced, but because they sensed power. And power, when it's silent and grounded, becomes magnetic. You must become the person who walks in with certainty, not arrogance, calm, not passive, clear, not reactive. This isn't about dominating others with force. It's about mastering your internal world so deeply that no one can shake it. When your tone, your energy, your presence says, "I decide how this goes," the game changes. People adjust to you. And that's not manipulation, it's leadership. So stop seeking validation. Stop waiting for someone to choose you. You are the frame. You set the tone. You hold the value. And if someone doesn't see it, it's because they're blind, not because you're not enough. From this moment forward, your power begins where your permission ends. Stop asking. Start owning. Walk into every situation knowing that you're not just reacting to the world, you're shaping it. Every word you speak, every silence you hold, every decision you make is a message. I know who I am. I know what I bring. And I will not be moved. That is how you begin to outsmart anyone, not by trying to win arguments, but by controlling the space where arguments are decided, not by fighting harder, but by thinking sharper. It's time to take back the frame. When you learn to control the frame, something unexpected happens. People start talking more than they should. They reveal their fears, their doubts, their insecurities, not because you asked, but because silence pulled it out of them. Silence is the most underestimated weapon in human interaction. In a world addicted to noise, those who speak less hold more power, not because they have less to say, but because they understand the value of restraint. Most people talk to fill space. They ramble, overshare, defend, justify. But the ones who dominate know that real control is expressed through what is not said. Silence makes people uncomfortable. It triggers anxiety in those who rely on external validation. They feel the need to explain themselves, to chase your approval, to fill the emptiness with words. And while they talk, you learn, you observe. You see what drives them, what weakens them, what matters most to them. You become a mirror they can't read, but they can't look away. Silence isn't absence, it's presence intensified. It forces others to deal with themselves. And in that stillness, your power becomes undeniable. Those who are ruled by emotion fear silence because it gives space for the truth to surface. But those who master themselves embrace it because silence reveals everything. It reveals confidence, it reveals clarity, and it reveals control. You don't need to argue to be right. You don't need to speak to be heard. Power is not in how loud you are. It's in how grounded you remain when others lose their balance. The mind races to fill silence with meaning. That's why it's so powerful. When you hold it, others project onto you strength, certainty, depth, even mystery. They begin to believe you know more than you're saying. And that belief gives you leverage. It makes your presence heavier. It makes your words more valuable when you do choose to speak. Because you haven't wasted them. You've made them rare. And what's rare is respected. So stop rushing to respond. Stop explaining yourself every time someone misunderstands you. Let your silence speak for you. Let people wonder. Let them lean in. When you're silent, they reveal who they really are. When you speak with intention, you reveal who you've become. And the person who doesn't need to be heard just to feel important has already won half the battle. That's what dominance looks like. Not noise, not attention, but certainty without desperation. You don't need to fill space to have impact. You need to understand that the strongest presence is often the quietest. When you learn to sit with silence, when you learn to hold it without fear, you become untouchable. Because you no longer need to force power, you embody it. And the world listens differently to someone who speaks only when it matters. That's the weapon, that's the edge, and most people will never understand it. But you will, because you're not here to be heard, you're here to be followed. The ability to stay quiet is only half the skill. The other half is knowing what to observe while others reveal themselves. Outsmarting anyone doesn't begin with action, it begins with awareness. Most people walk through life distracted. They miss the signs. They miss the patterns. They miss the truths that are always being whispered in tone, gesture, hesitation, and contradiction. But those who dominate, those who rise above the noise, train themselves to see what others ignore. They don't just listen to what is said. They study how it's said. They don't just look at people. They read them like code. Every eye movement, every shift in posture, every pause holds meaning. And those meanings become maps, maps of weakness. Maps of fear, maps of exactly where leverage lives. To master observation, you must first quiet your own mind. Most can't observe because they're too busy thinking about themselves, what to say next, how they're being seen, how they're being judged. But when your mind is still, you create space. Space to notice. Space to feel what isn't being said. Space to track the subtle language of emotion and intention. And once you start seeing clearly, you stop reacting blindly. You begin predicting instead of guessing. You begin understanding people not just by their words, but by their patterns. Patterns don't lie. People repeat themselves, especially under stress. They'll try to hide it, cover it with charm or logic or volume. But pressure always exposes truth. The way someone responds to silence, the way they avoid eye contact when challenged, the way they interrupt, over-explain, rush to agree, or suddenly get defensive. These are not random habits. They are signals. and signals are power to those who know how to decode them. The secret isn't to control every moment, it's to control what you notice, because when you observe with intention, you gain information others can't see. And when you hold that information, you hold advantage. You know when to strike, when to stay silent, when to redirect, when to walk away. You stop playing checkers with people who think they're playing chess. You stop getting dragged into pointless debates or emotional traps. You see the play before it happens because you've already read the player. This is how real dominance works. It's not about being the loudest in the room. It's about being the most conscious, the one who sees through the noise, through the image, through the surface. It's about being so observant that you become impossible to deceive, so grounded that you can't be baited, so sharp that every move you make cuts deeper than 10 of theirs. That is the edge. That is the mindset. And it begins with observation, not just of others, but of yourself. Your own triggers, your own habits, your own blind spots. Because when you master what you see, you master what you control. And when you master what you control, no one can use it against you. Awareness is armor, perception is power, and the quiet observer always wins the long game. The greatest mistake people make is trying to prove themselves in battles they never needed to fight. They waste energy chasing recognition in spaces where control isn't even an option. That's why they burn out, lose focus, and stay stuck. Because they don't understand one fundamental principle: dominance is never about winning every fight. It's about choosing the battlefield. Outsmarting anyone starts with one rule that changes everything. Never compete where you can control. Control isn't about force. It's about positioning. It's about placing yourself where your strengths are unmatched and your influence is undeniable. That's not luck. That's precision. Competition is what the average mind runs toward. It's predictable. It's emotional. It feels like progress, but it's just noise. The smart strategist doesn't chase competition, they rise above it. While others are busy proving themselves in crowded arenas, you create your own playing field. You redefine the rules. You reposition yourself so the fight becomes irrelevant. Because power isn't earned by engaging everyone. It's built by choosing who's even worth engaging. And more often than not, the answer is no one. You don't win by being better at someone else's game. You win by building a game so specific to your vision, no one else can touch you. The masses compete for attention. The wise create systems, paths, and leverage. That's the difference. Control means designing your environment, protecting your energy, and thinking 10 moves ahead while others are still reacting to their emotions. It means saying no to distractions disguised as opportunities. It means being willing to walk away from anything that doesn't align with your long-term strategy. Because when you control the game, you don't need to play small ones to feel powerful. Control is discipline in disguise. It's the ability to delay ego gratification in exchange for long-term positioning. You don't need to respond to every challenge. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to join battles that drain your mind and dilute your mission. Instead, you conserve your energy, protect your focus, and position yourself so precisely that others compete for your attention, not the other way around. This is how you separate yourself. Not through volume, but through vision. Not through competition, but through clarity. While others are playing to be liked, seen, and praised, you're building leverage, brick by brick. And leverage is what makes you untouchable. Because when you have it, you no longer need to fight. You make one move, and everything shifts. That's real dominance, not the loud kind, not the flashy kind, but the silent, strategic kind that makes people adjust to you without even knowing why. So step back, reassess, ask yourself, where am I competing when I should be controlling? Where am I reacting when I should be positioning? Because the moment you stop chasing noise and start building systems, silence, and leverage, you no longer play their game. You build your own. And when it's built right, no one can beat you at it. Influence begins the moment you stop trying to impress and start understanding how people think. It's not about being the smartest in the room. It's about knowing what drives the people in it. Every decision they make, every risk they avoid, every belief they defend is shaped by invisible triggers. When you understand those triggers, you no longer guess what moves to make. You know what to say, you know when to wait, you know how to push without making it feel like pressure. Because influence isn't control, it's alignment. It's guiding someone's choices without forcing their hand. It's making the outcome feel like their idea, while it was your intention all along. People respond to patterns. They're wired for safety, validation, certainty. That's where their defenses come from. But inside those defenses are openings. If you can identify what someone values most, you know what they fear losing. If you can sense what they crave, you understand what they're missing. And in that gap, in that space between desire and fear, is where your influence lives. Because that's where people are most malleable. Not because they're weak, but because they're human. And you're not exploiting them. You're learning how to move with precision through a world that rewards the observant and punishes the unaware. True influence comes from control of your own energy first. If you're reactive, they control you. If you're desperate to convince, they sense it. If you're too eager to prove yourself, you lose power before the conversation begins. Influence means being grounded, holding your pace, letting silence do the lifting until your words land with weight. It means reading what isn't said and choosing not to speak until what you say can't be ignored. It's not charm. It's certainty. It's not persuasion. It's presence. You don't influence people by flooding them with information. You influence them by making them feel something that forces them to think. That's the key. Emotion before logic. When they feel understood, when they feel seen, when they feel like you've captured their attention without even naming it, they lean in. And in that moment, you have more than their attention. You have access to their belief system. And that's where change happens, not from outside pressure, but from inside realization. You must train yourself to feel beneath the surface, not just listen, but decode, not just hear their words, but hear the fears hiding behind them. When you can do that, you stop trying to dominate through force and start leading through insight. And insight is rare. It's powerful. It earns respect in silence and moves people without resistance. This is where your power multiplies. When you understand that every room is filled with emotional codes waiting to be unlocked, you stop trying to impress and start influencing. Quietly, deeply, unforgettably. Because now you're not reacting to the world, you're shaping it. One thought, one emotion, one move at a time. That's the kind of power no one sees coming. Because it doesn't shout, it shapes. To outsmart anyone, you must learn to predict behavior. Not guess, not hope, predict. Because once you can see what people are likely to do next, you hold the upper hand without lifting a finger. Most people believe behavior is random. It isn't. Human beings are patterns in motion, shaped by fear, reward, repetition, and belief. The average person repeats the same mistakes, reacts the same way to pressure, clings to the same stories, and chases the same validation over and over again. Their actions might look different on the surface, but underneath, it's the same emotional cycle playing on loop. If you learn to decode that loop, you can anticipate moves before they're made. You stop being surprised. You start being surgical. Predicting behavior starts with one principle. Emotion drives everything. People don't make decisions based on logic. They justify with logic after the choice has already been made emotionally. Understand the emotion, and you can see where the decision is going before it gets there. Most people are ruled by invisible needs. The need to feel important, the need to feel safe, the need to avoid failure. And when those needs are threatened, they react instinctively. They try to protect their image, defend their status, or retreat into comfort. That's when the mask slips. That's when the truth shows. If you train yourself to spot emotional cues, how someone handles pressure, how they react to silence, how they respond to uncertainty, you'll start to see their future decisions unfold in real time. You'll see the fear before they deny it. You'll sense the insecurity before they try to cover it, and that knowledge becomes your advantage. Because while others are reacting blindly, you're positioning intentionally. When you know how people are wired, you don't waste energy on battles you've already won. You don't argue with someone you've already decoded. You don't need to dominate them. You've already seen the end game. You're not in the fight, they're in the pattern. And the more predictable they are, the more powerful you become. Because the one who can see the map is never lost. The one who knows how people move is never caught off guard. But this only works if you've mastered your own patterns first. If you're still ruled by impulse, you can't read others clearly. If you're reacting from your own triggers, you're blind to theirs. That's why the work always starts with you, your fears, your needs, your defaults. When you become the observer of your own behavior, you gain the clarity to read everyone else's. This is what makes you formidable. Not just intelligent, but aware. Not just knowledgeable, but predictive. You don't chase control, you hold it because you've removed the guesswork. And in a world driven by emotion, the person who can anticipate behavior is the one who writes the outcome, quietly, consistently, with calm precision. While others play checkers with feelings, you're playing chess with foresight. That's the edge. That's the advantage. That's how you outsmart anyone. Knowing how people think is power, but knowing how to use what you know is leverage. Intelligence without leverage is like having a weapon with no aim. It looks powerful, but it changes nothing. Leverage is what transforms your insights into influence. It's how you move the world without pushing. It's how you create results without chasing. It's how you win battles without even stepping into them. Because once you understand where the pressure points are, all it takes is a single, well-placed move to shift the balance in your favor. Leverage is not about manipulation. It's about precision. It's about creating maximum impact with minimum effort. And it begins with clarity. You must get clear on where your energy is most valuable. Stop trading hours for outcomes that don't align with your long-term positioning. Leverage means creating systems, environments, and strategies that multiply your presence even when you're not physically there. It means knowing when to speak and when to walk away, when to let others come to you, when to make a decision that echoes long after the conversation ends. You don't need to be everywhere when what you've built speaks louder than your presence ever could. That's the shift, from doing more to thinking better. The most powerful leverage is internal. Discipline, self-control, emotional neutrality. Because the person who doesn't need to react is always stronger than the one who does. When you don't flinch, when you don't beg, when you don't chase, you create space. And in that space, other people reveal themselves. They overextend, they overexplain, they underestimate you. And all you have to do is watch, listen, wait, and move strategically. That's what leverage looks like in motion. Calm, quiet, intentional pressure applied where it matters most. You cannot outwork everyone forever. But you can outthink them. You can outposition them. You can build structures around your strengths that make your weaknesses irrelevant. That's leverage. You take your knowledge, your insight, your timing, and you anchor it in actions that continue working long after you've stepped away. Most people build their power on effort. But effort fades. Leverage compounds. It multiplies over time. And the smarter you are about where you invest it, the less you need to force anything. Start asking yourself one question. Is this move building leverage or burning energy? Every decision, every conversation, every opportunity, look through that lens. Because the people who build leverage don't just grow faster. They move differently. They command respect differently. They win differently. Not through exhaustion, but through elegance. Not through volume, but through vision. Not through trying harder, but through choosing better. This is how you rise above the noise. This is how you separate yourself from the ones who rely on effort alone. You build leverage where others burn out. And once it's in place, everything begins to shift. Power comes to you. Influence works for you. And you stop chasing outcomes because you've already positioned yourself to receive them. That is the difference. That is the next level. Leverage means nothing without clarity. And clarity only comes when you remove emotion from your decision-making. The moment you start thinking with emotional distance, you begin to see what others cannot. You stop reacting from fear. You stop chasing validation. You stop defending your worth in places that can't recognize it. Emotional distance doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care more about the outcome than the approval. You are no longer tied to how something makes you feel in the moment. You're tied to what it means for your future. That shift is where real power lives. The majority live in emotional chaos. Every decision is tied to insecurity. Every reaction is based on how they feel in the moment. They lash out, shut down, or cling desperately to comfort. But those who rise, those who dominate, learn to stand still in the middle of pressure. They train themselves to separate how they feel from what must be done. They don't move out of frustration, fear, or ego. They move when it's time. That's how you become dangerous in the best way possible. Not because you overpower, but because you never lose your center. When you have emotional distance, your mind sharpens. You spot manipulation before it's spoken. You read tension before it explodes. You see the bigger picture when others are drowning in temporary feelings. That doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means your feelings no longer make your decisions for you. You can feel anger and stay still. You can feel pressure and think clearly. You can feel disrespected and still choose the most strategic response. That level of control is rare, and because it's rare, it gives you the edge. You stop walking into traps. You stop being baited into useless arguments. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Emotional distance is what keeps your power intact. It's what allows you to walk away when others are trying to prove something. It's what lets you wait while everyone else rushes. It's what makes your presence heavy and your words intentional. Because you're not speaking from wounds, you're speaking from wisdom. The world respects those who don't flinch, those who don't crumble under pressure, those who carry calm in situations where others panic. That calm doesn't come from talent. It comes from training, from discipline, from choosing again and again not to let temporary emotion decide permanent direction. That's how you build unshakable power. You make peace with being misunderstood. You make peace with not needing to be liked. You trade emotional chaos for strategic control. And once you do, you become someone no one can manipulate, no one can provoke, no one can predict, because you are no longer led by emotion. You are led by clarity, and clarity cuts through confusion like a blade. That is what separates the impulsive from the powerful, the reactive from the relentless, the follower from the strategist. That's how you rise, quietly, decisively, with absolute control. When you master emotional distance, you begin to see that people are not as complex as they pretend to be. They are running on scripts, habitual responses, unconscious behaviors, predictable reactions. They are not playing the game. They are being played by it. And the only way to win is to stop watching the board and start studying the player. Outsmarting anyone isn't about knowing more facts. It's about knowing people. It's about seeing their programming before they do. Because when you understand what someone values, what they fear, what they seek, and what they run from, you hold the key to their entire system. Most never look beyond the surface. They listen to words and miss the emotion. They respond to tone but miss the intention. They argue with the message and miss the motive. But the ones who dominate, the ones who lead without trying, are the ones who watch closely and speak sparingly. They don't rush to be understood. They observe to understand. They don't ask shallow questions. They listen for the real ones, the ones hidden beneath silence, contradiction, and discomfort, because that's where the truth is. And that's where the edge is. People want to be seen, but they're terrified of being exposed. They wear masks, roles, personas, trying to protect their inner world from judgment. But every mask has cracks. And when you train yourself to spot the patterns beneath the performance, you begin to predict not just behavior, but identity. You begin to see who they really are beneath the surface. That insight is your power. Because once you know what someone needs, you know what they'll do to get it. Once you see what they fear, you see how they'll avoid it. And once you understand their pattern, you can shape the game around it. This isn't about exploiting people. It's about refusing to be at their mercy. It's about staying 10 steps ahead by refusing to be emotionally blind. You cannot afford to react based on appearances. You must train yourself to feel what's real, even when it's buried, to hear the lie behind the smile, to sense the fear behind the confidence, to decode the truth behind the posture. And to do that, you must first remove your need to be liked, accepted, or praised, because the more you need from others, the more power they hold over you. The moment you stop needing anything from them, you can finally see them clearly. Everything they do tells you who they are. Every pause, every glance, every contradiction is a clue. And if you're paying attention, the game becomes simple. You don't just react, you respond with precision. You don't just participate, you direct. You don't get lost in the chaos. You stand still in clarity, watching everyone else play themselves. And that's where your power sharpens, not in controlling people, but in understanding them so deeply that they can no longer control you. Because once you see the player, you never fear the game. Most people spend their lives reacting to pressure, reacting to words, reacting to emotions they never learned to control. But if you want total dominance of your time, your energy, your future, you must become unreactive. Not cold, not numb, just unshakable. Because power doesn't scream, power doesn't panic. Power observes, calculates, and decides. And when you stop reacting, the world begins to adjust to you. You stop playing defense and start designing your reality with deliberate intention. The weak get dragged by circumstance. The strong build it. Emotional control isn't a nice idea. It's the edge that separates leaders from followers. It's what allows you to remain calm when others unravel. It's what gives you the clarity to see 10 moves ahead while everyone else is consumed by the last insult, the last mistake, the last failure. To dominate, you must become immune to distraction, immune to provocation, because the one who can't be triggered controls the one who always is. And in every room, in every conversation, in every negotiation, the most powerful person is never the loudest. It's the one whose emotions are disciplined, grounded, mastered. The truth is, most people are addicted to their reactions. They feel insulted and they explode. They feel afraid and they retreat. They feel insecure and they overcompensate. But when you stop giving in to every emotion, you stop being a puppet. You become the one holding the strings, the one who leads instead of follows, the one who moves with precision instead of impulse. That kind of discipline is rare, and because it's rare, it's feared. That's the energy that makes people think twice before crossing you. Not because you're aggressive, but because your silence makes them question everything. And to build that discipline, you must confront the truth. Your emotions are not facts. They're signals, indicators, but they are not commands. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you must act on it. And just because someone wants a reaction from you doesn't mean they deserve one. Every time you choose calm over chaos, control over reaction, presence over panic, you become more powerful. because you're no longer giving your strength away to every mood, every word, every disruption. You're holding it, protecting it, growing it. You weren't born to be pushed around by emotion. You were born to command it, to use it as fuel. But only if you rule it first. That means being aware of your triggers. That means noticing when you're being pulled and refusing to follow. That means staying rooted even when the storm rises, because storms always come. But dominance belongs to those who remain still while others drown in the noise. Stay steady. Stay sharp. Let your silence do the speaking. Let your discipline become your weapon. Because nothing is more dangerous than a person who feels deeply but chooses power over reaction. And that's who you must become. The most dangerous habit you've been conditioned into is hesitation. That brief pause between what you know you must do and the moment you actually act is the graveyard of greatness. In that hesitation, your mind begins to doubt, to overthink, to question what your soul already knows. Every second you delay is a seed of fear being planted, and fear grows fast. It wraps around your potential, suffocates your courage, and convinces you to settle. Not because you're incapable, but because you hesitated long enough to believe the lie that you're not ready. But readiness isn't a feeling. Readiness is forged through action, through movement, through decisive motion forward, even when everything in you screams to stay comfortable. Your future doesn't belong to the person who's the most intelligent, the most talented, or even the most passionate. It belongs to the one who moves, the one who doesn't wait for certainty, the one who knows that clarity comes after the leap, not before. You've been taught to wait for the perfect moment, but perfection is a mirage that keeps you standing still. And standing still is the fastest way to let life pass you by. Greatness is not waiting for you to feel ready, it's waiting for you to stop doubting and start deciding. The faster you act on what you know is right, the faster you silence the noise that tells you to stay small. Hesitation is comfort dressed as caution. It's fear wearing the mask of logic. It sounds wise, it feels safe, but it kills dreams quietly. It makes you second-guess your vision, dilute your ambition, and negotiate with your own standards. And the more you hesitate, the more your mind learns to associate discomfort with danger. But discomfort isn't danger, it's direction. It's the path that few are willing to take. It's the evidence that growth is right around the corner, but only if you move, only if you act. The strongest version of you is buried underneath all the chances you didn't take, all the moves you delayed, all the moments you froze when you should have stepped forward. But you can reclaim that version. You can unlock that power. It begins with killing hesitation, replacing it with speed, with decisiveness, with the fire to act boldly even when your hands shake and your heart races. Because that's what power looks like. It's not the absence of fear, but the refusal to obey it. Every time you hesitate, you surrender your future to comfort. But every time you act, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was lost in waiting. So burn the idea that you need more time. Burn the belief that you need more certainty. You don't need permission. You don't need guarantees. You need movement. You need fire. You need the courage to leap before you're ready. Because everything you want is on the other side of motion. And the time to move is now. Not later, now. You were not born to tiptoe around your potential. You were born to unleash it. But you can't unleash anything if you keep negotiating with weakness. You can't grow while constantly giving yourself an exit. If you always have a backup plan, you'll never fight for the first one. The problem is, most people live like they have forever. They walk slow, they choose comfort, they avoid pressure, and then they wonder why nothing changes. But pressure is not the enemy. It's the proving ground. It's where warriors are carved from chaos. The more you seek ease, the more you weaken the very muscle that's built to carry you through storms. Greatness is not found in soft routines and low stakes. It is born in the discomfort you keep avoiding, in the confrontation with the parts of yourself you pretend don't exist. Discipline is not about forcing yourself. It's about freeing yourself. It's the key to escaping the prison of your excuses. Every day you wake up and refuse to execute, you build another wall between who you are and who you could be. Your destiny is being delayed by your ability to justify average. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow is just a graveyard where your dreams are buried. Stop giving yourself space to fail quietly. Start demanding from yourself the level of commitment you expect from the world. If you want transformation, you must trade temporary pleasure for permanent power. You must be willing to suffer a little now so you can walk like a giant later. There is no growth in repeating easy. There is no pride in staying the same. Comfort will never give you the feeling you're chasing. It only numbs the pain of what you're avoiding. And that pain doesn't disappear. it grows, it festers. It becomes the silent killer of dreams, the slow erosion of your identity. You don't need more information. You need confrontation with your habits, with your laziness, with your distractions. If it doesn't serve your purpose, it's destroying it. Cut it off, rip it out, eliminate everything that feeds your weakness. Because every second spent indulging it is a second you could have spent building your legend. You are either building your empire or sabotaging it. Every choice, every action, every thought is casting a vote for the life you will live. And if your actions aren't aligned with your hunger is a lie. You can't want it and act like you don't. You can't dream it and live like it's optional. What you tolerate, you become. What you delay, you destroy. What you avoid, you empower. So stand up, lock in, strip the fluff from your life and get brutally honest. Do your actions reflect a warrior or a wanderer? Are you moving with intention or drifting with excuses? You have no time to waste. Burn the bridges, remove the safety nets, force yourself to rise. Because the version of you that wins doesn't play safe. It plays to conquer. Most people are running from the very thing that would make them unstoppable. They run from pressure, from pain, from discomfort, not realizing these are the forces designed to forge their strength. You cannot demand greatness while avoiding the furnace. If it's not burning, it's not building. If it's not stretching you, it's not shaping you. Growth doesn't whisper, it screams. It confronts you. It dares you. It exposes every lie you tell yourself, every weakness you protect, every excuse you worship. And in that confrontation, you face the decision, rise or remain, win or repeat, build or break. There is a version of you buried beneath the distractions, under the soft choices, hidden behind the masks of fear. That version is relentless. That version doesn't negotiate with failure. That version doesn't wait to be ready. It acts, it adapts, it overcomes. But to reach it, you must kill the version of you that's addicted to average. You must kill the behaviors that are silently robbing your future. Every time you hit snooze, every time you scroll mindlessly, every time you choose to coast, you are feeding the version of you that loses. That version wants your throne. It wants your time. It wants your soul. And unless you starve it, it will keep winning. Winning isn't an outcome. It's a standard. It's a code you live by when no one is watching. It's how you show up when the world is silent and your mind is screaming for comfort. It's found in the reps you don't post, the hours you don't broadcast, the battles you fight alone. And it's not about one massive moment. It's the tiny choices repeated with violent consistency. Discipline is the language of winners. And if your actions don't echo that discipline, your dreams are just noise. Loud fantasies with no foundation. You were not created to blend in. You were not designed to live on repeat. You were built to dominate, to expand, to transform everything you touch. But domination doesn't come through hope. It comes through hard choices, through cutting off every access point to weakness, through rewriting the story you've been telling yourself. You are not tired, you are underused, you are not broken, you are undisciplined, you are not stuck, you are surrounded by distractions you refuse to kill. And until you get honest, until you stop coddling mediocrity, nothing will change. Now is the moment you decide who you really are, not who you pretend to be, not who others expect, but the raw, unfiltered, dangerous version of you who's tired of excuses and ready for execution. Make war with your comfort. Declare battle on every soft impulse. Demand more from your breath, your hands, your mind. You are not here to survive this life. You are here to break it wide open and reshape it through will. That fire in your gut, it's not anxiety. It's the echo of your greatness waiting to be unleashed. Stop running from it. Start becoming it. The war isn't outside, it's within. Every limitation, every hesitation, every delay is rooted in the internal resistance that you've tolerated for too long. That resistance thrives on your permission. It grows when you settle. It multiplies when you justify. But the second you decide to silence the noise, to reject the lies, to cut off every excuse at the root, that's when the shift begins. The mind, once your prison, becomes your weapon. The body, once sluggish, becomes your armor. The soul, once forgotten, becomes the flame that consumes every obstacle in its path. The problem is never the challenge. It's your response to it. Weak minds wait for clarity. Strong minds create it. You are not waiting on a sign. You are not lacking direction. You are overflowing with potential, but it's buried under patterns that no longer serve you. You don't need more information. You need more execution. You don't need to be motivated. You need to be locked in. And that level of focus, that relentless pursuit, only comes when you finally make the decision to stop negotiating with your old self. Your old self doesn't want to be uncomfortable. It doesn't want discipline. It doesn't want greatness. It wants comfort, validation, ease. And as long as you let that version steer your choices, your future will be nothing more than recycled disappointment. But when you step into the mindset of domination, when you refuse to retreat, when you train your emotions to serve you instead of sabotage you, that's when you break through. That's when the limits evaporate. That's when your life stops reacting and starts rewriting. No more hiding behind distractions. No more pretending you're trying. You either do or you don't. You either rise or repeat. You either command your reality or surrender to it. And that command comes from intensity, not inspiration, from obsession, not optimism, from the kind of inner fire that doesn't die when it's dark, that doesn't fade when it's lonely, that doesn't quit when it hurts, the kind that keeps showing up because it knows that pressure isn't punishment. It's permission to evolve. Every breath you take is either fueling your mission or feeding your fear. There is no in between. If your habits aren't building you, they're breaking you. If your thoughts aren't empowering you, they're enslaving you. You must become the kind of person who doesn't need permission to go all in, who doesn't need applause to stay consistent, who doesn't need proof to believe deeply. When you decide that your standards are non-negotiable, when your identity becomes forged in commitment, everything begins to change. You weren't designed for a mediocre life wrapped in excuses. You were designed to burn with conviction, to dominate with clarity, to conquer with discipline. The clock doesn't care how you feel. The mirror doesn't lie. The world will not wait. You've been given one shot to become what you were meant to be. Make sure you answer that call with action so undeniable that even your past has no choice but to respect your future. Every second you hesitate, the old version of you tries to crawl back in. It whispers comfort. It offers safety. It bargains with logic. But you weren't born to stay safe. You weren't built to blend in. You were forged to rise, to rip apart limitations, to crush every trace of average until the only thing left is the relentless embodiment of purpose. Your discipline is your declaration. Your choices are your identity. Every action, no matter how small, is casting a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. And the truth is, no one escapes the weight of their own decisions. You either carry the weight of regret or you carry the weight of greatness. But you carry something. The world doesn't reward potential. It doesn't celebrate intention. It bows to execution. It responds to force. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that shows up every single day when no one's watching. The kind that doesn't skip, doesn't whine, doesn't need a reason. The kind of force that understands that legacy isn't built in comfort. It's built in war. And the battlefield is your mind. It's every lazy thought you refuse to entertain. Every excuse you crush before it can breathe. Every standard you raise and never lower. That's the war that matters. That's where transformation begins. Not in the moments you feel strong, but in the moments you feel weak and choose to act like you're strong anyway. You don't get what you want. You get what you demand of yourself. Life doesn't hand out success to those who wish. It responds to those who command, who grind through silence, who grow in resistance, who evolve because staying the same is too painful. The fire you're looking for isn't found. It's built. It's built through the broken days. It's built through rejection, through failure, through showing up when the emotion is gone and only discipline remains. That's the edge. That's the line that separates the driven from the defeated. You are not given this vision to remain a prisoner to your habits. You are not wired to chase temporary pleasure at the cost of your destiny. You are the architect of your outcome, the creator of your comeback. And that means the power is already inside you, but only if you're willing to awaken it through action. The time for waiting has expired. The time for hope has ended. What remains now is the brutal truth that nothing will work until you do. The climb is steep. The pressure is real. But so is your potential. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. And the longer you run toward discomfort, the faster you accelerate your rise. It's not about doing more. It's about becoming more. Stronger, sharper, colder under pressure, louder in presence, quieter in doubt. This is your time to dominate, not someday, not soon, now, relentlessly, without pause, until the world has no choice but to adjust to the force you've decided to become.